G'day everyone. Today we're going to go through how to compression test an engine. Our engine today is a VG30DETT out of a 300ZX. We're going to go through, pull all the coil packs out, pull the spark plugs out, and compression test the engine to give us an idea of the overall health of this particular engine. It hasn't done too many Ks, but I do have a few doubts about what the compression figures of this engine are. So today we'll go through and we'll show you guys how to do it and how to record our readings and see just what sort of health this engine is in. Now, before conducting the test, there is a couple of things we will need. A compression tester, you can normally get them from most tool shops for a couple of $100. We're going to need that to read any of our compression numbers. The engine also has to be at operating temperature. There's a reason I've stuck the back end out of the shed here. It's because it has been running. We don't want exhaust fumes in here. We get it up to operating temperature and we need to turn it over at 300 RPM. With all the spark plugs out and we're going to have the battery on charge, it should be able to turn over on the starter motor at 300 RPM. And of course, with the battery charging, we should be able to do that as often as we need to. So first thing we're going to do, it is at operating temperature. It's been running for quite a while. We'll go ahead, pull all the coil packs out, and we'll pull the spark plugs out of this engine. And we're going to make sure that the engine will not be injecting any fuel while we turn it over. Of course, we need to know the spec that we're looking for. There's no point doing a compression test. The numbers won't mean anything unless we know what a healthy and a worn out engine should be. Of course, diesels and petrols will be very different. Diesels have a much higher compression ratio and should have much higher numbers. And the same goes here with the NA and the TT. The TT is a compression ratio of 8.5 to 1, which is much lower than the NA. And of course, we have lower specs as well. So from the service manual here, we have the NA has 186 PSI as the new spec, a freshly rebuilt engine, and the low spec, the minimum is 142 PSI. For the TTs, I have on good authority, it is 171 PSI for a fresh engine and 128 PSI, the absolute minimum that you'll accept for a compression test with a hot engine at 300 RPM. Of course, between the cylinders as well, we must have no more than 14 PSI of variance between each cylinder. So let's hope that we have good even numbers and that we're above 128 PSI. We're hoping for around about 150. That should be a pretty good condition engine for these kilometers, but let's see what we get. Of course, if you're doing your engine, check the specs, find out what we need to achieve and work towards that. Okay, first of all, we're going to pull all these coil packs out. We will need to take the balance tube as well because we will not be able to get to number 6 without doing that. There's a couple of bolts and we can pull that out and maybe check the O-rings while we're there as well. So we'll pull all these out and we'll get started. That one will have to wait for the balance tube. There's a bracket here that can just get pushed aside when we take the balance tube off and leave that hose on. That is independent. We'll take that balance tube off because number 6 is under there. Okay, the balance tube has a couple of lines coming off it. There's 3 here, 3 vacuum lines, and there's one at the back. Now this controls the idle air control. There's a little hose here with a clamp. We're gonna have to undo that clamp and pull that off, and then we can take the balance tube out this way. I think there's one more vacuum line just there as well. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, all them lines are off. This one at the back is loose and we can go up off those studs. Just going to pull that through that hose. There we go. And out we come. Okay, the coil packs, we just pull the plugs up. There is a little push button there and we make sure that everything is as it should be. And we can just pry these out of their seals. And there we have a coil pack. I'm going to put them back where they came from. So I'm going to number these. You don't really need to, but I like to put everything back where it came from where we can. So this will be obviously number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in the back corner there. So I'll number these. We'll get them all out and then we'll pull the spark plugs. Okay, the spark plugs are going to be down there. They're a 16mm long extension. They shouldn't be too tight, but let's find out. No, not too bad at all. Let's get that out. One very hot spark plug. PFR 6B, which is an NA spark plug, and it's the wrong one for this engine, but that's okay. The TTs are a little bit longer. The spark plugs are slightly bit longer than the TT. They are a slightly different number, but that's okay. Okay, now I've covered up the plenum just in case we drop anything in, because that would not be ideal. Make sure them holes are covered. We're going to have the throttle wide open, and we're going to compression test the engine that way. I'll fit the compression tester. All the spark plugs are of course out, and we will go from there. Okay, so we have the compression tester. There's a few different fittings. We will check our fitting against the spark plug. They are the same, so of course we'll wind this one in. We're just going to stick it down the hole. Hopefully we get good thread alignment. We're going to wind it in with the hose. It doesn't need to be crazy tight, it just needs to seal enough so we can get a compression reading. And of course we will then fit our gauge. And the gauge is designed to store pressure. So as we turn the engine over, the needle will not drop. It will only record the maximum that we get, which is exactly what we need. Okay, so that's all hooked up. The compression tester is in and tight. The engine is still hot. If it cools down, you've got to put your spark plugs back in and your coil packs and warm it up again. So you want to do it pretty quick. Lastly, we're going to undo the fuel pump relay. Take the fuel pump relay out, unplug the fuel pump at the fuel pump, or unplug your injector harness, whatever you can do to stop fuel getting injected into this engine. In my case, the immobilizer actually turns the fuel pump off, which is good. We'll leave the immobilizer disengaged and we'll turn the engine over and hopefully get a good result. But of course, make sure we don't have fuel getting injected into there. It is a fire hazard. We'll have fuel vapor spraying everywhere. So make sure that is turned off. What we want to do, we want to make sure that we have the throttle all the way open. We want as much air going in as possible in order to get good compression results. Here we go. Okay, so that was about 105, which isn't great. So if we get a low number, what we can do is we're going to put some oil into the cylinder and see if it is rings. We put a couple of squirts of oil into the cylinder and that will actually seal it up temporarily. And that will tell us whether it's rings or if it's something going on in the cylinder head. So let's do that. Now just a couple of squirts down there. Make sure that we're getting plenty of oil in. We don't want to hydraulic the engine, but we don't want to get no oil either. Okay, we have oil in the cylinder now. Let's try again. Okay, so a slight improvement. We gained about 10 PSI. Not amazing, but I do think we have a bit of wear. Let's do number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And let's just see if it is one dud cylinder or if we're all nice and evenly worn. Okay, let's try this bank. It seems that we've got about 110, 115 all the way across the odd bank. Let's see what we've got on the even side. I imagine it should be all about the same. I'll be happy if we have at least consistent numbers. We know the engine is consistently worn. More of the same. That's about 100, that one. Once again, I'm going to put some engine oil in this one. And we're going to see if we get a better result. I feel like we should be getting a much higher result with engine oil in them rings. Let's just send a bit in. Okay, a bit of oil in number 2. We're hoping for a better result. We need to beat 100. We can see there a much better result with oil in the cylinder. So we're going to conclude here that our cylinders are worn. Okay, so that's the compression test done. All 6 of them were around about 100 PSI, some of them around about 110, which is within spec between the cylinders, but it is below spec for the minimum of 128 PSI that you'd like to find when testing this particular engine. So what do we want to do now? Do we re-ring the engine? Do we oversize the bores if there's a bit of wear there? Of course, we are looking at rings and cylinder bores. Adding oil did increase our PSI by around about 25%. Number 2 went from 100 to 125, so we're definitely looking in the region of worn bores and worn rings. We can pull the engine out and rebuild it, or in this case, I can keep driving it for a bit until we're ready to do that. It blows a little bit of smoke at idle when it's hot, which is what I was looking for. That's the reason we did this compression test, and I think we found the answer there. Of course, low numbers aren't the end of the world. Maybe if we had a dead cylinder, we had a hole in a piston or a cracked ring or something that's going on, and we had a cylinder that was doing 50 PSI, it might be a problem. We have even wear. We need to decide what to do next. And hopefully you got better compression figures than I did doing your test. Just remember the key points of keeping the engine warm. We need to have a fully charged battery and keep it on charge if you can. Shut the fuel off, of course, and when you're doing the test, make sure you have that accelerator pedal wide open. We want all the air going into that cylinder so we get accurate results, and check the specifications for your particular vehicle because they do vary quite a lot between turbos, non-turbos, and of course diesels and petrols as well. I hope this has helped. Thank you very much for watching.